Hi, and welcome to the channel. Thanks for joining us. We have a special guest today. This is our first landing on our journey of sharing eco-villages. We're on the east side of Big Island today. We're at a location called GaiaYoga Gardens. And before I introduce our guest today, I just wanted to let you know as a viewer, we're going to go ahead and do this without, as I speak, we're going to do this without any edits. We're going to be making mistakes, but we're just here to share and be able to share that authentically and share all the mistakes that go along with it too. But towards the end of this video, we also will be giving you a slight tour, kind of visit a couple of the zones here. But we do have a couple questions here for our guests today, and just so you can get to know them. If you do have any further questions or want to get more detailed information on GaiaYoga Gardens or our guests, we will be listing all of the information, the links, the website in the description below. Of course, you can send us a message, DM, or you can contact the guests and get more information. So just go ahead and start today. I wanted to let you know we do have a co-founder of GaiaYoga Gardens here with us today. He goes by the title Sustainable and Holistic Culture Pioneer. And part of the reason that I was attracted here and doing this first one, he does have a very deep intent on the practices. And I admired that about him without even meeting him first. I've only met him once here before, a couple days ago, but we're gonna go ahead and get started. His name is Tarletz Hanamana, if I said that correctly. And before we begin, Ano, I do like to just take one relieving breath to be able to
Sure.
invite our guests to go ahead and join us also, but also so you and I can connect and just kind of let the morning go. So if you want to join me, here we go. Let's go ahead and take a breath in and let it out. Thank you. Thank
Thank
you
you.
for joining me on this. Really appreciate you taking the time this
Yeah.
morning and today.
Delight. Yeah. I'm glad
Yeah,
to be here.
I know you got a lot of stuff to do here, but I really appreciate this. And I do want to start off just quickly in some of your information in your book in 2001 and 2003. You do mention about this emerging idea of this, and there was that time frame between 2001 and 2003 of your idea of this, and then you said you started it in 2003. Can you kind of just give us a little bit of the background on that point, what you did imagine, and then actually being able to make that decision?
To start the actual place,
Yeah.
because there's two things that really they're slightly separate, which is the Gaia Yoga teaching, which is a
Okay.
teaching of living sustainably and holistically, and it's in my opinion, a comprehensive yoga, Gaia yoga of living on the planet, being one with the earth. And then there's Gaia Yoga Gardens, which is, this spot on the planet where we're gardening Gaia Yoga consciousness and Gaia Yoga culture. So they're obviously very interconnected,
Yeah.
but they're not exactly the same.
Yeah.
So the reason I developed the Gaia Yoga teaching was, so I moved out to Hawaii in 1992 after going to kind of a real cool hippie school, and I graduated. And when I graduated, I just knew I had a giant no to everything, just no to civilization. The whole world that I saw was just like, not for me. But I really didn't have any yeses. Like my yeses were like music and friends and organic farming, and it was kind of vague, right?
Yeah.
So I moved up to Eugene, Oregon, because was a cool hippie town and seemed like a good place to go. And there I just stumbled onto this teaching called instinctive eating, which is how to eat the way all other creatures on the planet eat. And I was just mesmerized and magnetized to it, and I started doing it. My health changed. I could breathe out of my nose for the first time, and since I was a little kid, and it just completely transformed me. And I stopped wanting to be where there was winter. So I ended up in Hawaii after a long, journey. And I just started studying things. I learned instinctive eating and then permaculture. And then I started learning various communication and healing modalities, just dabbling in that.
Yeah.
And then I got turned on to this cultural transmission called the Shiva Lila teaching, which there was a community that was alive in like the 70s, and then it just didn't, it fell apart. But then this man who I met who was part of it just filled me with all these possibilities and like clarity about our indigenous nature. And I was like, yeah, this has got to happen. That's our water pump going off right there. And so I got really into that and the clarity and beauty and vision. And then I learned, I ended up leaving the island because it was just not working here for me.
What did you feel that was not working when you were here?
I was in my mid-20s, and I had a lot of healing and growth to do, and I couldn't do it here. And the people who I was cooperating with and attempting to create community with, they didn't know how to get through to the next thing that I was trying to get through to. And yeah, so anyways, I ended up getting together with this woman, and we ended up getting involved in this spiritual teaching called Waking Down, which was developed by a man named Samuel Bonder, who was a former devotee of a very powerful spiritual teacher named Adi Da, which some people might know, some people know. And anyway, so I had this awakening that they teach there, and it was very powerful, and it like kind of satisfied my spiritual quest. Not that I was a big-time spiritual quester, but I was like, oh, okay, that's the spiritual realization that, great, and that, and then I ended up coming back to the Big Island because I was living part-time in California with her. And then I learned about nonviolent communication, Marshall Rosenberg's teaching. And so that was what was going on with me. I basically had all these yeses. I had instinctive eating, permaculture, Shiva Lila teaching, you could just say indigenous clan-based community. I mean, that's really what it came down to it. This waking down process of awakening to our full nature and nonviolent communication. And I was just like, yeah, I got this makes sense.
Yeah.
And what I found was that I would hang out with permaculture people, and they'd make these beautiful farms, but nobody can get along with each other. And then I'd hang out with the NVC people, and they all got along with each other, but they all lived in their own little houses, and had no real community outside of coming together. And then I hang out with some raw food people, and they're all like, raw food this, raw food that, but they're jerks to each other and can't get along. So then I hang out with the Waking Down people, and they can go really deep together, but again, they were all just living in the suburbs. And I was just like bouncing around, like literally like in an airplane, like hanging out with these people and that people. And I was just like, this isn't quite working. And then I met this man, Pianki, who I don't know if he's still at Twin Oaks. He eventually went to Twin Oaks. But he really transmitted this thing about wholeness or holism that just, and I realized that I had this patchwork approach to life. And what I needed to do was actually make wholeness the fundamental focus. And then with wholeness as the fundamental focus, all these things, fit in.
Yeah.
It's like, a body isn't a nice kidney, a nice heart, a good nose and a knee, and you throw it together. A body is wholeness.
Yeah.
And then, of course, there's all these organs, and they have to work together.
Yeah.
And I realized I just had this whole patchwork approach, and that most people do.
Yeah. Would it be like a perception different change of wholeness, or would you say like when you're saying wholeness, the connecting from within first, or dive a little deeper into that?
So the original words that we used to describe the GaiaYoga teaching was a holistic vision for living sustainably as spirit, self, community, and earth. So it's basically I see spirit, self, community, and earth as the fundamental building blocks of human culture and human consciousness, really. So if you're not focusing, it's like one of the metaphors I use is if you have a car, you don't just focus on the carburetors and the tire. Yeah. Okay? I mean, you can have a great carburetor and great tire, and your engine's going to blow up, right? You have to pay attention to the whole car. If you just don't have a key, you can't start it.
Yeah.
If there's no gas at the gas station, you can't drive it. So To create just your car to move, the roads have to be good. The oil has to be there. You have to have the key. The carburetor has to work. The engine has to work. The transmission has to work. The whole thing has to work.
Yeah.
So you can't just have like a cool girlfriend and a nice job and think your life's working.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Everything has to work.
But where do you start in that? Because that's a big, can be overwhelming if somebody's like,
so what I
gotta
said
have it
in
all together.
our original booklet, An Introduction to Gaia Yoga, I said, because I like playing with, what's already been done. I said, the journey of 1,000 miles does not begin with a single footstep. The journey of 1,000 miles begins with turning yourself in the direction that you're going to go. And that is the key. You have to turn yourself in the direction you're going to go, and you have to commit to going in that direction. And then you deal with what arises. And if you don't make that turn, or, then you're either having your ship just get blown around by the winds, or you're pointing somewhere that's not going to get you what you want. Like you can just really go for, the American dream nightmare, and once you succeed, you'll be like, boy, that didn't really give me what I wanted.
Yeah.
So you have to have a vision, a goal, a way of life, a culture, a consciousness, practices that are actually going to generate wholeness.
Yeah.
And then you have to follow through on it.
So it's a commitment.
Yeah.
Really looking at it from the true standpoint of really saying, no matter what, I'm going to keep continuing at this intent.
And just like with a ship, like a sailing ship is a great metaphor. You can't, it's not a bullet straight line. You have to tack. You have to work with things. You have to know where the icebergs are. You got to, it's not just like, oh, I'm going to go that way and everything's going to be fine.
Adapting to it.
Yeah, but you have to stay, okay, that's where I'm going. And no deviation from that. You might have to go this way for a little while and come back this way, but you're not going this way because you're changing course.
I see what you're saying. Yeah, you're not wavering back and forth. I might go back to this corporate life or this. Then it becomes very scattered, is what you're saying.
Right, and if you're clear on what you're doing, you might actually learn how to make money in a way that continues to feed your overall intention. I mean, if you talk, if you listen to people like Arnold Schwarzenegger or what's his name, Michael Jordan, they have that kind of clarity. Now, it's just in sports, but it's just it's that absolute clarity.
Yeah.
And if there's anything less than that, the world will push something in your face and say, are you really committed?
Yeah.
And you'll go, oh, that's too much, I quit.
Yeah.
And that is the difference. That's why places like GaiaYoga Gardens and other people who are doing similar or the same or whatever their best version of something sane are the minority. Because to get to where we want to go, we have to step through an incredible amount of trauma, conditioning, programming, discomfort, fear, distrust, brokenheartedness, crazed mindness. I mean, it's not just like, oh, I'm just going to move into the jungle and get along with everybody and live happily ever after.
It's gonna be perfect. Yeah,
I wish it was.
Yeah, but the willingness, and I think that's what drew me to you originally, was because I could sense the willingness for you to be able to confront that if something comes up. It's a compassion that comes out that can actually see it as a challenge and allow it to, bear some fruit in a different fashion. When you say, I do want to touch on, when you say yes, I can see you light up. When you say, this was my yes moment, or this was the moment that I really was like, yes, help our viewers describe that, what you, in your sense, because you have a lot of experience with that, and I can see it even today, very much so. Dive into that a little bit. What do you feel when you feel yes, and maybe even when you feel no?
Yeah, so the first yes I had was instinctive eating. And, very simply, instinctive eating clarifies that if you're eating foods that tell the truth, which are only whole, raw, organic foods, unprocessed by humans, not cooked, not spiced, not condimented. If you eat those, if you smell that food, if it smells good, that's your body actually communicating with the food and the food communicating with you saying, hey, you might want to eat me. And then if you bite into it and it tastes good, that means you do need it. And the magic is that when you no longer need it, it stops tasting good.
That's beautiful, yeah.
And that is how every creature on the planet eats. Now they use all their senses. They use their sight, whatever. But you could watch a cow and it'll sit there and pick through all the different grasses and all the different things and just eat this and not that and just this much of that because their instincts are sharp and they know what to eat and what not to eat.
What about decisions? Those ones can be a little trickier because sometimes you're like, I'm nervous and excited.
Well, hold on. Let me. So
yeah, go ahead.
So I got that really anchored into my organism and my psyche and my soul. So then anything else that came into my field had to harmonize with that. So permaculture, like perfect fit, right? We need to create an environment that supplies our food. Our food does not come from neon signs. It doesn't come from supermarkets. Our food comes from living plants and animals. So I want to live around my food. And I go, no other creature in the world doesn't live around their food.
That's true. That's epiphany right there already.
No creature does not just live around their food.
Yeah.
And they just wake up and go out into their environment and eat. Now, plants don't even have to go anywhere. They just, they're rooted in and the rain falls and the sun's there and they just can stay still, more or less. Yeah. But all creatures move around and there's enough food for them in their environment to eat. So I was like, okay, instinctive eating and permaculture, click. And then everything about living as an indigenous person, like an aboriginal, all that consciousness and way of being, like click. And then this, spiritual click. So once everything starts to click, it's just like doing a puzzle and you go, wait a minute, that doesn't fit. That's outside of the wholeness of this deep harmony, and deep, shared resonance. So then over time I I adapted the definition of Gaia Yoga to be the art and wisdom of living holistically, integrating spirit, self, community, and earth. It's not that different, but I just, it's a little more clear. So that's what we're gardening here at GaiaYoga Gardens. And if you look around, I'm going like this, like the camera's moving, but this is a pasture for our milk cow. There's coconuts, bananas, papayas, every fruit tree that you've never heard of is here. Every tropical fruit tree, so we have all this stuff here.
Awesome. Yeah.
But it's just to really support creating a space to grow this culture and consciousness.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
Let's move on to, I do want to talk about Gaia Yoga and some of the current happenings that you're...
GaiaYoga Gardens?
Yeah, Gaia Yoga Gardens, and you could almost be a riddle with that one, but
right.
I do want to talk about just kind of the current happenings and then also maybe some of the current intentions that you do have here as a community.
Well, so in 2018, there was a lava flow that came through here. We had to leave the property for 3 months, and we lost our easy access into the property. And, but when it was done and we came back and we still had our place, a bunch of people who were sort of in the maybe realm, like they'd been here for, a year or 2 or months or whatever, something catalyzed and they went, yes, we're meant to be here. Pele, took a half acre of our land and left us with all our infrastructure intact. And something happened and people just were like, let's do it. And so we transferred the ownership of the property from me and my partner, Melekai, into a religious nonprofit, so that there was actually a legal structure and an economic structure of a community, not just a bunch of people trusting in our benevolent dictatorship. And people started to become trial members and actually put in sweat equity and money.
Oh.
And and so we started to create a leadership council, and we were meeting, making decisions together, learning how to do that.
Is that like did you create it like a LLC where people are part
No,
of
it's not an
that, or is
LLC.
it-
No, it's a religious nonprofit.
Oh, sorry, yeah, nonprofit, and then so when they buy in,
They're
on
members of the nonprofit.
Okay.
I don't want to go into all those details.
Yeah, no, it's just kind of interesting, the
Yeah.
overview of it, but
Yeah, that could all be figured out.
cool.
So, but then over time, this one couple had a divorce, and then there was this, and then there was that, and we got up to, before that happened, we got up to 32 people during COVID, and it was just felt so good. Lots was getting done. There was just gatherings and things going on, and it was just it was just great.
Yeah.
And we had kids and adults, and it was just wonderful. And then just one by one, two by one, people left, and eventually we got down to 5.5 people here.
Oh.
And it was just devastating. My intimate sphere, dissolved, and it was just really, really torturous for me. I was crying every day for a couple months, but I was like, this isn't an accident. One of the things I really hold, there's many principles that I hold very dearly. One of them is that designs reveal themselves accurately in life. So there was a design, and it revealed itself accurately in life, and it did that. So I was like, something needs to change. What happened is a symptom of the design. It's like if you plant an apple tree, an apple seed, I'm sorry, you get an apple tree. It's kind of the symptom of the seed, right? The seed gets life, and it creates that. You plant a pine tree, you get a pine tree. You plant a lettuce, you get a lettuce. So if you plant, GaiaYoga 4.0, you get what I got.
Yeah.
So I had to open up the hood, tear apart the engine, rip apart the transmission, figure out why this went like that and that overheated and this didn't lubricate, and okay, I'm going to put it back together and see if I can put it on the road. And that process was what the Four Noble Truths came out of.
Awesome.
Which, was a much bigger book than I realized. But what I did in that process, which took a couple years, was just really deeply meditate on the incongruency between what people say they want and what they actually create. And where does that incongruency occur? And how can we bring enough consciousness so when that incongruency starts to happen, we can, no, we're going to go this way. Okay? And, and this is intense stuff around trauma and sex and security and love and, children and survival. I mean, and so there's just so much stuff and so much patterning to go this way because this is how we were trained. But if we go this way, we don't get over here. So we have to go this way. And how do we handle that moment right there when you're freaking out and you're going to go do this? And what you need to do is relax and go deeper and keep going the direction we're going together, maybe a little slower because we just hit a big bump.
Yeah.
A big ouch that we all need to feel and understand.
Yeah.
So,
do you have things set up for that here in the community? Or is there meetings or?
Yeah, we have all that, and it hasn't been enough.
What'd you do in this particular instance?
What do you mean?
When you said to take a moment and relax, and then.
Well, I wasn't a particular. That was just a general.
Oh, okay.
I mean, for me, there's a saying that comes out of 12-step groups of putting principles before personalities. And I realized that I've been putting personalities before principles. And putting my desire to not be alone over my principles. And so I've realized that I'm better off being alone and fasting than, quote unquote, eating somebody that gives me a stomach ache. And that's just been a really painful and challenging lesson for me personally. And I think other people have the same kind of struggles. So right now we just cleared out a really intense amount of patterns inside of people. Another phrase I have is exorcism or exit. So there's things that are alive in people, these shadows, these whatever you want to call them, whatever word you want, that ways that people behave and think and relate that do not produce results that most people like. And they don't know how to not do that, right? And so when that kind of thing arises, right? Because you meet somebody, it's just like with a relationship. There's the honeymoon phase, and then you start to get into the problems, right? So either people are going to have an exorcism and really go, oh my God, I'm doing this thing that my belly is going like this, and there's a snake coming out of me like this, and it's going at you. And instead of like doing it, right, and throwing the daggers or whatever people do, right, or self, mutilating themselves, violence against another, violence against oneself, they have the exorcism, and they go, whoa, this has got to go. And they ask for the support they need, and that thing could, and you vomit it out, sometimes literally.
Yeah.
But if you don't do that, then you're going to exit, because people aren't going to tolerate it. And if it's something that you internalize, like you go into self-violence, you can't handle being constantly triggered into something that it's not resolving.
Yeah.
So people exit. We recently, very sad to say, very tragically, had somebody kill themselves here. Not on the property, and I was like, whoa, there's a serious exit. There was something in that person that they just couldn't face, and they were pressed up against it, and they just said, no, I'm not, whatever it was more painful to go into the trauma, or whatever you want to call it, than to escape it.
Yeah, and just to exit out.
Yeah. And so, more than anything, that is the difference between a successful anything, is can people recognize when they need to have an exorcism and have it. And I choose that word intentionally. It's a graphic word, because it is an exorcism. It's that intense. Because people have stuff, whether they're outside entities or just patterns that they were learned as in childhood, that are gripping them, controlling them, undermining them, creating the world they want. They need to be exercised.
Yeah.
And it always could be done. Really, it's just about choosing to do it. Once a person goes, oh, I don't want that inside of me anymore running my life, it's almost done right there.
Yeah.
But man, people's defense systems are so high, and this thing is clinging to its, for its life.
Yeah.
And so people will, destroy their whole life rather than deal with that. And we see that with addictions, all over the place.
Yeah, I'm sure it's exacerbated, and very much so here in a community base on a daily. But in a sense, you're able to see that and help support that, and if it's something that they do want to.
Yeah. So the newest thing, you asked me what we're doing, is we're now requiring, when people live here after 3 months. So when people, their first 3 months here, they have to be completely sober. Cool. They can do whatever they want off property, but nothing. And that includes video games, caffeine, chocolate, everything. Just, And then our new requirement is going to be, after, if people want to stay beyond 3 months, that they need to either get into a men's or women's group, get into a therapy with somebody that really is helping them, like a good, quote unquote, good therapist, or get in a 12-step group or something like that. That everybody, we're going to require that they are working with somebody outside of our community who the focus is you and your well-being and your consciousness and your mental and emotional sanity.
The primary,
Yeah.
The support.
And that's been something we've tried to do in-house, and we just doesn't, we haven't been, a few people we've been able to be, sustain moving forward with, but, it's like the difference between, kind of like, yeah, I can kind of fix a car, and taking it to an auto mechanic who, that's what they're trained in.
Yeah.
And we need to take our car into the shop a lot.
Yeah, and it kind of relieves some of that from you allowing the gardens to grow, in a sense.
Yeah,
like
it could
coming
be that.
back, they're kind of
doing
something.
And then we could do maintenance, and then we could support whatever they might discover in doing that work.
Awesome.
And I do that. I'm in a men's group. I wasn't going for a while, but I've been in therapy for years now.
I think
And
we all are constantly. If
well, no, I mean, I like go see a therapist.
Okay.
You know,
Okay.
it used to be every week, now it's every other week.
Okay.
And, you know, it's very important, you know, because if I don't, you know, I could get away with missing once or twice, but, you know, months go on, just like you got to brush your teeth every day,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
And that's really humbling because, you know, the biggest, I mean, I say things in these kind of dramatic ways. A huge issue is that a human being, and really any organism, just wants to follow in the footsteps of those who came before it.
Mm-hmm.
But if we follow in the footsteps of those who came before us, we're not going to create something we want.
Mm.
And so as an adult, to actually go, holy, you know, I have to start over. And not from a blank slate. I have all these ways of beings that don't produce the results I want. I actually have to drop all of that and re-educate myself. That is so overwhelming because that's what you're supposed to do in the first 15 years of your life is learn how to live, right? If you grow up in an indigenous culture, a healthy one, you learn how to live and you just become an adult and do all the things you were taught as a kid.
Yeah.
We can't do that.
Yeah. Even more so today. It needs to be recreated.
Yeah.
In a new fashion.
And that's a huge thing for any individual or group to like, oh, holy fucking, oh my God, I gotta do, you know. Most people just go click, you know, plug me back into the matrix.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I mean, I understand.
When you're saying just on a general sense, you said you are down to about 5 or 6 people now?
No, right now there's 10 people here.
Okay. So you have about 10 people. What's like? What would you say now that you've been up to 30 something people and down to 10? What would you say that your goal or intent to how many people kind of works well here?
I mean, just for the, I mean, here at this property the way it is now, yeah, I mean, we need at least 20 people who are really here, and skilled and capable and functioning and getting along with each other. But that's, it's hard to get 2 people in a marriage to do that.
Yeah.
So it's not quite as intimate as a marriage, but it's not that far away either.
Yeah. Are you still holding events, and do you have any events coming up?
No, we have had events. One thing, since the lava took our road, just getting here is a lot more of an endeavor. So it's a little less like, oh yeah, we'll just come over there for, a potluck. It's more like, oh, I have to drive that 3-mile road. I don't know if I want to do that tonight. I think that happens for people a lot more now. Yeah, our main thing is we do our immersion, and we have people come over like you guys did and do a tour and connect with us. If we have a kind of, a person here who's really into putting on workshops and having, GaiaYoga hangout days, and they want to organize it, we love it.
Awesome.
But it just depends on who's here. Right now, more the people here in general are more like just let me be alone and quiet. Not alone, but let me just be here, and I don't want to, I just need a chill.
Yeah, I mean, just some private breathing space, but still be around some people.
Well, yeah, I just mean relative to like putting on events and stuff like that. Because, putting on an event is a responsibility. It's like, we do a white elephant every year.
Oh, okay.
We've done that for like 20 years. That's always fun. But yeah, I mean, the one thing for me, like I go out, like I teach NVC out in public, and I go out to farmers market every Sunday. So I'm doing outreach in that way. Yeah, it's something that could be more. I mean, we could certainly do more of it. But
I did want to talk a little bit leading into kind of some of the farmers market stuff in general. How does money kind of play into this world? How do you make money? Do people trade here? Is it all just community you share? Do people work here while they're here? How does that kind of work for?
It's different for everybody. I mean, there's some people who are retired. I have numerous businesses that all are, aligned with my values. I climb coconut trees and sell coconuts. I have a nursery. I, buy things in bulk like machetes and sickles and stuff, and I have albums and write books, and I teach. Um, I've never had a lot of money, but I've always had enough money. You know, I paid my credit card bill in full every year for like 15 straight years. And I always have the things that I need, but I don't like. I'm not like, oh, I want another guitar. That one's so cool. I just don't do that. It's like I have enough guitars, I have the equipment I need, and I don't like splurge. So I always I don't know. I'm always provided for just enough.
Yeah, but
I
enough.
forget occasionally and get really anxious, when I'm like, oh my God, So, some people have odd jobs. Some people live off their savings. Malachi, she works as a nurse at a rehab center right now. She was a midwife. She did home births. Yeah, I mean,
cool.
if people want to be here, the money shows up. I mean, it's not really a big deal. You know, the communities don't fail because they don't know how to grow bananas. They don't fail because they don't know how to handle solar systems. They don't fail because they don't know how to build a building. They fail because people can't get along with each other because they're triggering each other's trauma so much that that's nothing else is the problem. So you can handle that. People can get along. They can have cooperative businesses. If somebody has some skills, they could do it. If they just want to be at home and while other people go make money, I'm just going to do more here at home to make, things work. That'll work. I mean, there's so many different, because if you think about an indigenous culture, which is, what our model is in many ways, they just took care of everything.
Yeah.
They weren't, what's the word?
Together.
And they weren't amassing resources. It's like, we're not trying to amass resources. The resource I want is a coconut tree and a mango tree and an avocado tree that every year, again, produces, or many times a year. So that's what I want to invest in. So then we don't harvest the whole tree. We don't cut the tree down. We just live off the interest, so to speak, of the tree.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's a good way.
It gave 500 avos this year. Oh, and it gave 300 this year. Great.
Make some great guacamole.
Yeah. So,
Awesome.
I mean, it was a miracle to get the money to buy this land to begin with. No doubt, multiple miracles. But
Yeah.
and that is a big deal. I mean, you can't practice permaculture and build a community in virtual reality.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
In a college dorm. I mean, you need to have land.
And just start doing it.
Yeah, and people have to live somewhere.
Yeah.
And so yeah, it's a blessing that we have this place, for sure. And
I do have some switching gears here.
Sure.
I just want to make sure we cover some of these other questions. I want you to give me some definitions, from Ano. The first word I have for you, which is big here on Big Island, is impermanence. How would you define that, and then how does that relate to, yourself and the farm?
So when I think about impermanence, I think about a forest. So in a healthy forest, if you look at it today, you're going to see these animals, these insects, these trees. If you look at it in 500 years, some of the trees might be the same, but all the animals and insects are going to be not the same. But the forest is really going to look the same, right? Because there's a fundamental life pattern of the forest that is stable and beautiful and harmonious and sustainable. And so, it's always changing, but the fundamental song stays the same, right? And so to me, that is the difference between, the kind of impermanence that I focus on. It's about getting back into a life rhythm and a consciousness that's aligned with, life, with Gaia, with spirit, with, whatever words you want. And then yeah, things are going to die, things are going to live. There's, There's a beautiful quote from Adi Da. He says, "There has been endless times of numberless deaths, and neither consciousness nor life has ceased to arise."
That's beautiful, yeah.
So, I mean, it's just, the question is, what's the pattern that we're living in, right? And that, to me, that's where we need to do some radical, magic and healing.
Yeah.
And, as a species, we're designed for cradle-to-grave relationships. But, we don't stay still. You start as an infant, and then you're a little kid, and then, you keep growing, and eventually, you're an elder, and then you're composting. So, yeah, there's an impermanence, but again, the pattern of living cradle to grave, indigenous, earth and spirit centered, holistic, sustainably, that doesn't have to change. I mean, over billions of years, I guess we might get obliterated, but relatively speaking, I think that's what we need to focus on for what is permanent. It's that pattern.
Yeah.
And then we keep dancing in that pattern.
Yeah.
And that is impermanent.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a beautiful explanation, the dance of the permanence that you do see with the pattern. That's a good way to look at it.
Yeah, and so we're just in a very disharmonious pattern, most humans are right now. I mean, all you gotta do is point the camera out there and everything's doing just fine. There's no trauma, there's no disease. I mean, there's nothing, there's no unhealthy trees over there. They're all thriving. Everything's just fine over there. And then you point to a city and it's just a disaster area. It's because humans have lost, So let me say something about Gaia Yoga. So,
Sure.
I learned, permaculture, in the early 90s, started studying it. And one thing I was struck by is that when they were developing permaculture, they were like, we don't have a word to describe what we're talking about. There just wasn't a word in English. So they coined the word permaculture, right? And you hear the word permaculture and you just, there's something so poetic about it. You just immediately I immediately get a picture of like what it's pointing at, right?
Yeah.
And it's inspiring in and of itself. And I thought, once I realized, going back to my earlier thing, is like most of the teachings I was involved in, the NVC, the instinctive eating, the permaculture, all this stuff, they were beautiful, but they were not holistic. They were just about one little thing, one aspect of life. And I said, we need a word to describe this larger teaching that's about all of it. And then it's big enough to hold all of these things, right?
Yeah.
And I actually was making love with my partner at the time, and just Gaia Yoga just appeared in my consciousness. I was like, that's the term. That's the poetry that I was like, yes, because it is a yoga.
Yeah.
And it's really a yoga of being one of the cells of the body of this living planet of Gaia.
Yeah.
And that's really, and then as an animal, as a spirit, as a villager, as a modern person, like we're simultaneously, light, atoms, animal, aboriginal, tribal, villager, modern, industrial person, and spirit. We're all of those things all the time simultaneously. So we have to have a yoga, a practice, a vision, a way of living that actually holds and honors all of that. And it's a huge paradox. It's a huge paradox. And most people won't hold the paradox, so they just...
Yeah.
And then there's problems, because whatever you ignore is what is going to bite you in the ass.
Yeah.
If you don't check your radiator, that's what's going to cause your car to stop working.
Yeah. The holistic.
Yeah.
Wow. That's really good. Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
I do want to talk a little bit about, in reading through part of your book, you do mention something called interdependence.
Yes.
And you also mention the relationships and intimacy and some of the 5 spheres that you were talking about and the 4 nobles to truth. I would like to hear a little bit more about that, because I know that's, like you were saying,
Sure.
you know,
So I
connections.
think, in this kind of interview, it's probably the most not simple, but accessible thing is the difference between dependence, independence, and interdependence. And this is directly out of Marshall Rosenberg's NVC teaching. Maybe I guess I made it my own, and I talk about it differently. But so dependence basically is the disposition of my needs don't matter, and only yours do. Okay, and that is in general the disposition of in a less desirable world of a child, right? Children are meant to be seen and not heard, right? You just have to do what the adults say. Okay, so dependence is my needs don't matter, yours do. At some point, a lot of people don't like that, and so they break into independence, right? Which is my needs matter and yours don't, often known like this, right?
Yeah.
Marshall, in his joking way of teaching, calls that the obnoxious stage. Okay? So the problem with independence and dependence is that neither of them really are in alignment with what's true about us. Okay? Because what's true is my needs do matter, and what's true is your needs also matter.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
So interdependence is the consciousness that doesn't sacrifice my needs for caring about you and doesn't sacrifice your needs for caring about myself. It's able to hold both. So what interdependence requires is what I call sovereignty. Sovereignty is the what we want, not independence. Okay, sovereignty is radical self-connection and self-awareness. Okay, but not to close off our connection to the world.
Yeah.
Okay?
That's a big
Right.
statement.
And so when someone doesn't have sovereignty, they end up basically flip-flopping between independence and dependence. Okay?
Yeah.
And you could really see that, in intimate partnerships, especially with the women. Okay? Because women, it's not universal, but just as a pattern, will often just become, an appendage of their husband, right? You don't even know what she does for a living. I just support him, right? He's a cowboy, I'm a cowgirl. He's a doctor, I'm the doctor's wife, whatever. So they just, people, when they're in a state of dependence, just morph and become the other person. And it seems all harmonious, okay? And it seems to the person who's doing this, the other person that they're into it. But they're not.
Yeah.
Or they're not as much as they appear.
Yeah.
And then eventually the independence starts to, and the rebellion. So dependence submits, independence rebels. Okay?
Okay.
Interdependence doesn't do either of those. Interdependence just is like, this is what's true in me. I recognize what's true in you. There's things about you I like to explore. I'm going to do some exploration, but I'm not committing to that this is what I'm into. But, I could try out, fencing, or volleyball,
Yeah.
and discover if I like it. And I'll let you know. And if I don't, it's not my thing.
Yeah.
So, I'm using examples that are not that charged, but in a community setting, this movement between dependence and independence is very dangerous. And what happens, and this is the trap, is that if you've been stuck in dependence, okay, and you've escaped to independence, going into interdependence looks like going back to dependence, because in dependence you cared about other people's needs. And so the act of just caring about other people's needs is traumatic at a certain level, right? Because you only know how to care about other people's needs at the sacrifice of your own. So it's very challenging for people to step out of this independence, dependence, sort of traumatic, neurotic, protection of their humanity, both. So they get their security through the dependence,
Yeah.
right, and they get their freedom through the independence.
Yeah.
And they can't. There's nowhere to stand.
Yeah.
Where the interdependence is like 2 feet planted firmly together.
Yeah.
So, and that's where we actually get our real freedom, and our real security is in that ability to hold all of that.
That's amazing. Yeah. That was huge. When I started reading that, I was like, oh, this is like the juicy part of
Yeah.
that connection, being able to go back and forth. Because that's going to, in that instability, there's going to be so much stuff that comes out of that just in itself of anxiety and fear and survival
Absolutely.
and ego.
Yeah.
But the moment that you're able to step into that interdependence, or even just turn that way, like you were saying, and be like, I don't know how I'm going to do this,
Right.
but I'm going to focus on this, you're already letting go a breath of,
Yeah.
okay.
And a lot of people, you know, it's not like universal in their life. A lot of people are capable of interdependence in the local sphere, you know, in the collective sphere, at their job, but, you know, with their children or with their parents or with their lovers or with their bandmates, you know, at deeper levels of intimacy, they might not be capable of interdependence. You know, so it's not just like, oh, this person's all independent, you know, in this state. It's very complex.
I can see that.
But for me, you know, if you read my books, if you talk to me a lot, you notice I have a lot of little structures, right?
Yeah.
And it's because it helps me, like, oh, because it's easy to kind of like get lost.
Yeah.
You know, they're like compasses.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, here I am thinking if I care about this person's needs, I'm not going to get my needs met. Well, that's not accurate. I'm in the consciousness of independence right now. I'm not going to like the results I produce. I got to shift out of that. So I do, hopefully, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
But if I just having those words and having this little thing I just shared with you has helped me tremendously. And because I also need to be able to recognize when someone is in a state of dependence or independence and then relate to them correctly. Because if I think, oh, they're in interdependence, I'm going to get a lot more intimate and trusting and, like, you know, overlapping a lot of things that are really precious to me with them, and I'm going to get really disappointed. I'm going to lean back and it's going to break and I'm going to fall and hit myself.
Yeah.
So it's very important to be able to recognize that and then to have, you know, healing conversations about, hey, I think, you know, you're functioning in independence here. You know, can we look at that together?
That's beautiful. That's
Yeah.
how I say it. Yeah.
You know, and we need to, and, you know, people need to be able to do it with everybody, you know, it's all
Yeah.
directions. And
We do. Your diagrams, they are cool because they do look like compasses. That's a good way to say it. It's very a quick overview to be like, hey, this is kind of where I'm at actually, and
Yeah.
without having to get too much in your head, you can kind of, you know, have it in front of you and in front of your face.
yeah, and, you know, they're only worthwhile if they're actually accurately describing the territory. And it seems like they do.
Yeah, you spend a lot of time on it, I can tell,
Yeah.
to get to that.
Yeah.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
So I do want to talk as of now and the, you know, where you're at. It sounds like you're in this next phase of kind of rebirth, already kind of, you know, expanding into some new stuff here. But would you say, from your standpoint and your perception, from all those years ago, back in 2003 when you first started, right now, do you feel like you're living the dream that Ano, you know, you originally saw? Like, do you feel attuned and
Well,
aligned now?
in myself, yes. And that's it's kind of a sad question. So when I moved to Hawaii, you know, I was, you know, in my early 20s, bright-eyed, bushy-tail, you know, a backpack, a guitar, and, you know, what's going to happen, right?
Yeah.
And I really just, you know, once I kind of learned about Shiva Lila and permaculture and found some people who ate instinctively, and, you know, I was like, wow, we're just going to create this beautiful world. We're going to be swinging from the trees. It's just going to be amazing. You know, tree houses and, you know, family and friends and lovers, and it's just going to be amazing and beautiful. And okay, finally we're here. We can create the beautiful world. And then about 5 or 4 years ago, maybe, after things started to fall apart, I thought, oh, maybe I'm just planting seeds in the desert and, you know, growing a little garden in the desert. And I might get a few berries, might get to nibble on a few things. Maybe I'll get something taller than me to grow, you know, but it's a pretty tough soil to grow in here and climate, okay? And then over the last year and a half, two, I thought, maybe I'm just creating a seed and I'm not even going to get to plant it myself. But that's, you know, So it's like my sense of what's possible and my impatience and my time frame is really changing. You know, not happily. You know, I'm not like happy about it at all. I mean, it's been extremely heartbreaking and grief filled.
Yeah, thank you for being real.
Yeah. But I'm just like, okay, well, if that's all I'm going to do is create a seed, I better fucking create a damn good seed and protect it. And, you know, if I can at least get it to sprout, that'd be nice. But that, you know, okay. You know, so I've kind of had to, at least in my mind, think I might be alone in this. You know, pioneering this consciousness. It might not turn into a culture in my lifetime. You know, and you know, if you look at something like the phone, you know, I don't know how long Alexander Graham Bell lived, but he didn't get to see a cell phone and his invention, you know, take over the whole planet.
Very true.
You know, Marshall Rosenberg, you know, who developed NBC, he got to see it grow, but you know, it's going to keep growing. So, you know, if Gaia Yoga is true, you know, whatever you want, effective, aligned with life, you know, then I just need to, you know, keep focusing on it. And, you know, if, you know, like I like to say to people, it only took 4 Beatles to focus together to create something that's, you know, still, you know, all over the planet and still deeply touching people's hearts. So I just, you know, if I could get a few people, there's a woman who, you know, is just joined our community named Harmony after visiting us every year for 5 years, you know, and she's like, there's a solid person, you know, so if I just feel like I just got to really keep the space here pure to its principles and not let people here who are not really in alignment with it. And that's been hard for me, you know, because I want to help people grow, and I know there's a lot of healing people have to do, but I have to be able to discern. It's like, is their ship pointing in that direction, and are they committed to that direction? It doesn't matter if they're 5 feet away from it or 5,000 light years away. If they're pointing that way, we can go, right? The problem is people who are like, you know, only a few miles away, but their ship's going like this, you know, and we're never going to get there, even though they're already kind of close now.
Yeah.
And so just really holding that discernment and just protecting that quality of consciousness and, you know, life vibration, you know. Yeah, because you get 10 people on stage and they're playing 7 different songs. It sounds like shit.
Yeah.
But if you have 4 people on stage and they're playing the same song, people can hear the song, they can get into it, they can want to learn it. You know, it's clear. And so that's really what my work is just like in myself, and then, you know, as much as I can in the people who are here, hold to that clarity. And even if it's just a small people, at least we're vibrating well together.
Yeah, you have a deep passion. I don't know if that's fully the right word
Yeah.
for it, but it's very committed to that vibration that I know that you're sensitive to, which is, I appreciate that. And it's good to hear this because, you know, even in you saying all that and being real, you know, for the viewers and people watching, it's whether they're looking at joining an eco-village or even starting one, they can see a little bit of that life already ahead of time, which really, I think, really can help somebody and relate to that.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's talking about a seed. I mean, I really think that the value I have to offer the world is, I mean, it's not just in my books, but it's in the seed that I've had the privilege and the freedom and the protection to meditate on this, you know, for the last 30 years.
Yeah.
You know, and most people haven't.
Exactly.
So it's like my hope, you know, there's one of the quotes in my new book that I heard from someone else, that there's 3 ways people learn. Some people learn by reading, some people learn by watching, and some people have to pee on the electric fence themselves. And, you know, my hope is to help people not have to pee on so many electric fences, because it really hurts. Like, we can learn from each other.
Yeah.
We can make, like they say in permaculture, if you're not making mistakes, you're not doing permaculture. But what we want to do is make new mistakes. There's no point in making the same mistakes as our neighbor. Yeah. We can learn from our neighbor, and then we can start making new mistakes.
Yeah, that's a great segue into kind of ending this. I do have another question for you, but can you expand a little bit on that? Because there is like what you're saying, being able to share with other people that, like, are you open to that here? Like if somebody is beginning an eco village and they wanted to come talk with you or get a
Sure.
consult and you kind of help them
Yeah.
along a little?
Yeah, I mean, I absolutely would. And, a lot of times my advice is don't do that. We don't need more land colonized by humans. We need to figure out how to live together, and there's a lot of communities of one out there,
Yeah.
you know.
What would you suggest, or what's a little bit of advice on that if somebody was interested in?
It's, you just got to really understand why are you starting something by yourself, Like for me, I was deeply mourning starting this place because I had tried to make it work with several other people on several other lands, and I either found that they weren't sincere or what they were doing was just, I could just see how it wasn't going to work, and they wouldn't, value my reflection enough to do anything different. So it was really like out of mourning. I was like, I don't want to colonize more land. I don't want to pioneer. I don't want to start new fruit trees. I wanted to join in with people who are already doing it, or I'd already been doing it in various places, and just keep going with that. And I was like, okay, I guess I have to start this by myself. I wasn't like some happy thing. And when I see people just like the energy in which they're like, I'm going to do this myself, I'm already suspicious. Like the thing in you that makes you want to do it yourself is going to make it so that it's not going to work.
A little bit of that independence is in that.
Well, it's just the uninspected trauma around trusting other people and cooperating with other people.
Oh.
There's a lot there. There's a reason they're in that disposition. That disposition is not the energy to start a community with.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. The willingness to open the heart to be able to accept the
Right.
challenges of what.
Yeah, and so, it's like, I don't expect everyone in the world who's interested in community to want to live on this particular 17 acres, and hang out with me, and the other people who are here. Sure, I mean, that's not for everybody. But I just think that, 99% of the people who, start a community are not really doing it, for the right reasons, just to say it in kind of a crass way.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean that people shouldn't start communities, but when I hear like, hey, there's 8 of us, and we've been friends for 6 years, and we really want to live together, and we're pooling our money, and we're going to buy land together, I'm like, go for it, right? But when a lot of people are just like, yeah, I can't live the way I gotta just do it myself. I'm just like, okay, I know what that's gonna look like.
Yeah. Thanks. That's put some good perspective on it, for sure.
Yeah.
I do have this one last question.
Okay.
I'd like to leave it open-ended, and then we can take a tour around and take
Sure.
a look at some of the
Yeah,
spaces.
that sounds beautiful.
Yeah.
You can feel me opening up a coconut because I'm thirsty.
We'd love to do that. I would leave it very open-ended, and you can answer however you want. But for our viewers specifically, what would you like to share with them? You could share anything that you want, but your last, kind of words here with anything that you really feel is on your heart today. I do like to bring it back to the present moment, and obviously a little bit of the manifestations maybe too that are.
Yeah, well, this is what came to me, is that the longing and loneliness that you feel in your heart is not something that's wrong with you. We are designed as a species to live with a lot of people and have a lot of closeness. And no amount of social media and movies and hanging out with friends occasionally is going to satisfy that. And we really, just like bees and dolphins and ants and wolves, are meant to be living with other people. And if we don't have that, we will be lonely, we will be sad. It's normal. It's not something you're supposed to transcend. It's something that is a call to action to actually change your life. And it will feed you, and it will feed everybody, because we all give to each other, I give to him, he gives to me. It's like, it's so much different than everybody in their own little compartment.
Yeah, very much so. Thank you for that. Oh, let's take a little
Yeah,
tour
yeah.
and get something to drink.
So this is, you want to show around, this is
Yeah.
first idea is this is a music studio. I'm sure we're going to use it for other things, but this is all local woods that are up on the roof there, and there's used metal roofing above that, and then there's a clear tarp in the middle to let light in. And this floor down here, if you come over here on the edge, you can see the subfloor is all pallets. These are all pallets that would have ended up in the landfill.
You see that?
And this whole floor is pallets that have been processed, planed, torn apart, and made into this beautiful floor. So the entire floor is free, except for the nails and the glue and the screws.
And you're going to have all music equipment in here, is it?
Yeah, the walls are going to be, what I'm going to do is here, I'm going to take like a bamboo, but it's going to be tall, and I'm going to cut it in quarters with a special tool, and then I'll take each quarter, which will be like about that, and it'll go floor to ceiling, and I'm going to put it as the wall, the inside wall. And what that'll do is it'll make it, because in a music studio you can't have parallel walls because it's a problem. So this will make it so that there's not parallel walls. Even though the walls are physically parallel, sonically this curve will be bouncing the sound all over the place.
Awesome.
And I came up with this after hours of discussion with various people who know about sound and studios and stuff, and I was trying to figure out how to make it work. And then the outer walls I'm just going to use used metal, so it'll keep the sound in here.
That's
And
gonna be great.
yeah, we'll probably put a aerial silk up to that top beam,
Oh yeah.
and yeah, it'll just be music studio, and then whatever else we do with it, meetings, dances, parties, what have you.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks
So-
for
But yeah, this is a
Shannon.
basic way we build things, and I'm really, one of my goals at the physical level is to have first world comfort with third world impact. And so this is a great example of that. All these trees, we cut down ourselves, and they're, actually we didn't even, these were mostly this tree called Malokia, and that doesn't even kill the tree to cut it down, even like that, it grows back. So it's all just, either salvaged or, locally harvested, no clear cutting involved.
awesome.
Yeah. So yeah, we could walk around.
Yeah,
I'll
let's
grab a
go get it.
coconut and show you some more stuff.
Awesome.
Are you filming the whole way, or?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So this is my old school bus, which is where I recorded 3 albums for my band. It's called Nagdeo, Nagdeo. It could be cleaned. We don't, there's so many things that I would have differently if we had enough people here to take care of everything. But anyways, that's going to become the control room for this as a music studio is the idea. So that it's outside of it, but connected.
Okay. Okay.
We'll see. So we have orchards all over the place. This is a Charwill avocado. This banana is called Kluwe Kai, or egg banana. It's the connoisseur dessert banana from Thailand.
Oh.
One of my favorites. This is a champadek tree, which is a relative of a jackfruit. Very sublime, delicious fruit. It's sad. We put all this energy into supporting this branch here, and then that one broke that we didn't support.
Oh yeah.
But it's not dead. It's just This is abiyu right here. Super yummy fruit that most people don't know about because it doesn't have a shelf life. Oh, there, that's an abiyu. That one got stung by a fruit fly. Those are super yummy. papaya. This is one of our 2 cocoa bars, a little pile of coconuts.
And you get all these with no equipment. You climb free.
Well,
Still?
I climb with a pair of pants and a t-shirt, which
Okay.
is equipment.
Okay. Still.
And
Still, I'd be scared
and
going up.
depending on the situation, I have a ladder that I use to reduce how many linear feet I need to climb.
Oh.
I used to, before the lava, I had a lot better trees to climb, and I didn't have to climb as many trees each week.
Gotcha.
So, but yeah, no, I have about 10,000 free climbs that I've done,
Oh.
and here I still am. So this is our main communal space. We're in the middle of doing a lot of I don't know. We're I can't think of the right word, but there's piles of stuff out here is because we're gutting the place and doing and changing things. So it's not normally like that.
Gotcha.
But you know, this is a good example. This building was not built to be our community center. It was built just to be a home for my kids' grandparents, you know, their mom's parents. And then they just stopped coming so much because they got older. And then we just decided to use it for this. So it wasn't designed like that. So it's like we've kind of retrofitted it. And there's things about it that just kind of don't work, but they work well enough. Like we store our cardboard for recycling under there, which is a little ghetto, but whatever. And you know, this wheelbarrow parking is kind of convenient, but again, it's not the most lovely thing in the world. So,
Hey, there's no judgment.
no, it's
No
I'm just saying all this stuff. You know, it's like this
Yeah.
is real.
Yeah.
You know, we just redid this front half wall, which I really like, the tie dye.
Yeah. Love the color.
So, anyways, come on in and I'll show you. This is called tutus. So most of our buildings have tarp roofs. We call them tropical breeze houses. And so, you know, you can see this pile of stuff is stuff we're in our reorganizing. But here's our food shelves. These are all bananas from the land, all avocados from the land. This is mamey sapote from the land, Rollinia
Oh, yeah.
from the land, star fruit from the land, papaya from the land, and then we also have, there's a jackfruit, and then we purchased, these mangoes are purchased. These oranges and lemons are from our land.
Yeah.
And yeah, so there's a lot of life in here.
This is where you, a lot of everybody gathers here for dinners?
And most people eat in here. We have another kitchen that also people, you know, live in.
Yeah, that's
Anyways, you know, it's not the most organized at the moment, but and you know, but yeah, this is it.
good. Cool.
And
You got the kitties sleeping up on the
yeah, cats
rafters.
know how to find the places they want to be.
Oh.
So, anyways, most of our structures are like this, where they have screen walls and sometimes half walls. And you know, at first it's kind of like people are a little uncomfortable living without walls, and then most people switch to becoming uncomfortable living with walls.
Yeah, I
So-
can see that.
Yeah, I like just, you know, having
Yeah.
protection from, you know, mosquitoes and rain, but, you know, basically having the sense of being outside.
Yeah. Like the Dave the other day when we first showed up, and he said, "This is the best wallpaper I've seen."
So this is a really special mango right here. This is Mangifera odorata or Mangifera. I forget I don't know how to pronounce it, but this is in mangoes. Most mangoes developed in monsoon climates, and they can't handle moisture on the flowers. And so here in East Hawaii, where it rains, over 100 inches a year in most places, you never get mangoes because the trees are healthy, the flowers come out, it rains, and the flowers mold and they fall off, and you get no fruit.
Oh.
But this is something that developed outside of a monsoon climate. And so we're finally getting mangoes. And this is like, come over here. Yeah. I'll show you, this is the best crop of mangoes we've had from this tree yet. Right up here, look at that.
Oh, wow. Look at them all.
So this has been dropping. I picked up 4 this morning. And these are really like this kind of ancient primordial mango flavor.
Wow.
So we're slowly grafting over all of these mango trees that I planted that aren't producing into one. There's 3 of them. This one called Kasturi, and one called Lali Jiwa, that all are different species of mango that actually handle the rain just fine.
Oh, okay.
So we can continue walking?
Yeah, let's go see that little space.
Yeah, the bedroom.
Yeah. We actually got some sun today. It's kind of nice. It was raining the past couple days.
Yeah. So this is something you're not going to see very many places. This is a coconut sprouting bed.
Oh, yeah.
And this is not for growing to plant. This is growing to eat. We eat these coconut sprouts.
Huh.
There's like this sort of foamy, cotton candy-esque stuff in the middle, plus the hard meat. So where there was juice in the young coconut like this, so there's still the same husk, and then the shell, but then there's hard meat, and then inside of that there's this foam that's really delicious and very nutritious. And so this is, just a giant, it's like lunch or dinner right there. And it takes no soil. Yeah, it's it's good survival food, hurricane proof, drought proof. I call it the most efficient form of gardening in the world.
That is, I've never seen that before.
Yeah. On this side, we have bananas, and here's another coconut tree. This one has some fruit on it.
Oh, yeah.
And we have our durian orchard. We have I think 6 grafted durians in here. 2 of them have produced quite a bit over the last 5 years. And durians are fussy. It's hard to get them to do what you want.
Mm.
So here's a little agricultural, well, I'll show you over here. A little easier to see it. Here's our requisite dead car situation here.
Yeah, they haven't been used for a little while, it looks like.
Yeah, I mean, one of them we're saving as a parts car. The other one we're trying to sell as a parts car.
Oh, okay.
But
yeah, repurpose.
So here's what we're doing. We have all these mango trees that I planted that were supposed to be quote unquote anthracnose resistant, which means that they were more likely to grow when it rained, but they didn't, or not grow, produce. You could see the tree was great. So what we've done is we've grafted the odorata onto these. So I cut down these big limbs, and then they sprouted out, and then we grafted it. And so we're basically transforming this tree from one that didn't produce to one that will produce. And so as this gets a little bigger, I'm going to cut out more of these other stuff, because you don't want to cut too much at once because the tree might die.
Oh, okay.
So, but it's probably about time to do another level of getting rid of the stuff that doesn't produce. and then more and more of the energy will go into that. And in a couple, maybe 3 or 4 years, we'll start getting fruit off of this.
Okay, that's really interesting.
But this tree is like 10 years old, and it's produced like 5 fruit.
Wow.
Because the rains.
Oh.
And so we have all sorts of bamboo. I have a bamboo nursery and tons of bamboo. Over here, we can walk into see this structure, and you can see some guajua, which is a South American bamboo. So this is guajua, very hard, very straight. If you want to put the camera down here and look up, you can just see how straight it is. Bugs don't really touch it. It's quite an amazing thing. And you can see how it's an open clumping bamboo, so there's a lot of space. Creates like a grove.
Oh, wow. Yeah, because usually it's bunched together, right? It's all kind of like in its own.
Yeah, there's clumping bamboo, open clumping bamboo, and running bamboo.
Okay.
Or another way to say is there's crawling bamboo, walking bamboo, and running bamboo.
Oh.
So this is kind of like walking.
Oh.
So it spreads out a little bit, but not that much. And then this is one of our bedrooms. This is called Wunderspot, because I originally built it with this German guy who was living here. And we actually made the actual structure out of this bamboo because it was right here, which is not a timber bamboo. It's actually an edible raw bamboo called Nastus alatus, which is not supposed to be used as a building material, but I figured, well, let's just try it. And the structure lasted for almost 10 years, but we finally tore it down to the subfloor, and then we just rebuilt it. So yeah, this is kind of, a good model for your basic bedroom structure. I guess I'll walk in.
Yeah, this is the one. This is the best wallpaper we've ever seen.
Yeah. And so this is just a 10 by 12. It has a bed and, a little closet and, whatever. No one's in here right now, but if someone's in here, they can make it more, personal feeling, not just like a jungle hotel feeling. But yeah, this is all made out of Malokia, which is a local wood that most people don't value at all. But it's my favorite building material because it grows straight, it's lightweight, you don't have to pre-drill, bugs don't touch it, it's all over the place.
How long does it take to just build something like this?
Well, we never just like have 3 people or 4 people start a project and that's the only thing they work on every day. So it's a little hard to say, but the floor took a good amount of time. We kept the subfloor on this and just put a new floor on top, what you actually are standing on. That took maybe a month, I don't know. It's hard to remember. Just because, again, it's just some people working on it and then they're doing something else and then they leave and I give it to somebody else. Yeah. And then the frame didn't take that long at all, because we just kind of threw it up. I mean, you can see there's not much to it.
Yeah, and we just have, so this is just, we have like colorful cloth here, but then it's just a tarp that's hanging in the trees.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Yeah, and this tarp is like 18 years old or something.
Wow.
Maybe, wow. It's a really old tarp because it's in the shade. It just keeps going.
Okay, wow.
So yeah, it's comfortable. You're warm. You can see everything. It's nice.
Yeah, it's definitely a different, if you were coming directly from the city and no camping, this would be a complete opposite.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So it would be taking like getting used to, but I would imagine almost immediately there would be a sense of awe, being able to see what you see no matter where you look.
Yeah, it's really, it's not something, nobody sat down in in an office and designed these. These have been sort of evolving, since I first moved here 30 years ago. We first were just making tarp structures. This whole thing we call tarpentry. Tarpentry is the whole activity of building with tarp roofs. And it was developed by this man named Chitta. He kind of pioneered it and taught it to me and a couple other people. And then we started making these things that I call breeze houses, tropical breeze houses. You know, and the first ones were just like a box. They didn't even have the angled roof, right, the A-frame. And then we were, that'd be better. And, you know, and we just sort of have slowly gotten better and better at them.
Yeah.
And then we started developing the pallet wood floors. You know, it's just been an evolution.
Yeah, I love the pallet floors. I mean, that's perfect. Just to be able to reuse that and repurpose it, and it looks amazing.
Yeah, and it doesn't have it. It actually feels first world.
Yeah.
Right.
It
It's
does.
not like a dirt floor or just some ugly plastic mat floor. You know, it's like, oh, it's nice.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, and then here's, you know, bamboo from the land for the headboard, and you know, even the bed here. You can the bed frame is pallets.
Oh yeah. No way. Yeah, and the tree. Did you? Oh, that's just a pallet, just to support it.
Yeah, just
underneath.
Yeah, because there's two pallets together, and so that gives it.
Oh,
that way you
it's
don't have to
4
have a
pallets?
leg in the middle. No, it's 2 pallets.
Oh, just 2.
Yeah, so that helps connect them underneath, because otherwise you just have the screws in the middle.
Oh yeah.
And it's just gonna flop out.
Yeah, fold.
Yeah, well, it's a little bit more than 2 pallets, because
see.
this is a queen size bed. It's 2 pallets, and then we add a wing on either side
Oh yeah.
to make it just wide enough for a queen size bed.
Oh yeah.
A full size bed will fit on a pallet, but mostly we have queens, and so they need these little wings.
Okay.
Yeah,
Wow.
tricks of the trade.
Well, so much to learn. I do want to say thank you so much for your time and
Yeah.
all this information. Yeah, it's been really amazing just getting all this information. If you do want to get more details and everything on his books, even music, we're going to go ahead and put that in the description. And if you do want to reach out to Ano and getting, you know, just he's pleasant to work with. I sent him an email and he responded rather quickly, actually, quicker than I expected. I thought, I don't know, he might be off grid for like 2 weeks.
Oh, right,
but you
right,
responded and I was like, oh, okay, this is great. So, but we will put all the info in there. Thanks for watching, everybody. If you do like this content, go ahead and like and subscribe. That way it lets me know. We're going to go ahead and produce some more, which I'm going to do anyways, but it helps me know we can proceed and get things building and growing, because we want to do a lot more of these with the other eco villages, and then that way everybody can kind of share and bridge that gap, and then we'll kind of just see what happens with it. And that's why we wanted to keep it raw and just organic. So appreciate mistakes, appreciate the learning, everything, and teaching us some new things that we didn't even know here. So but if you want to share anything last, and then we'll sign off.
Yeah, feel free to visit.
Yeah.
Aloha.
Aloha. Thank you.